Article 24, we have protection of young persons from exploitation. So these rights are comprehensive such that they even cover young ones. Everyone is covered here. So this right prohibits engagement of young persons in any occupation or employment which would prejudice one's health or education or interfere with physical, mental, or moral development. So you are protected by these rights as a young person from any employment. What type of employment are we talking about here? Let's say there is this job of killing people, or there is this job of exporting drugs. There is this job of selling prohibited drugs. It is employment, but young ones are protected from such employments. That's why if you are employing someone who is very young, mostly you'll be asked to talk to their parents or the guardians. Why? Because we want to protect our young ones from exploitation. Article 25, there is derogation from fundamental rights and detention. The article provides for derogation from fundamental rights and detention in times of war or public emergency. Derogation, we mean exception from fundamental rights. We mean when there is war or public emergency, some of your rights may be limited, such as the right to move, the freedom of movement. It may be limited. Let's talk about COVID-19. Some people were being isolated. That is violating their freedom of movement. You are violating their freedom of movement. But that's why we have this article. It limits the enjoyment of certain rights during specific times, such as time of war, public emergency, or when we have a pandemic like we had coronavirus. We are told, no, stay home, stay home. You can say we have freedom of movement, but this is a special moment. You don't need to move. Your right has been violated. So there is derogation from fundamental rights and detention. When we talk about detention, for how long are you supposed to be detained? So there should be a limit. Article 26 deals with detained persons, people in police custody, people who have been arrested. So one has the right to be informed the reason for detention. Why have you arrested me? Why are you taking me to the police custody? You have the right to be informed the reason for detention in writing. 1. 2. In a language that you understand within 14 days of detention. Within 14 days of detention, you're supposed to be told or informed the reason for detention. Article 27, Special Tribunal to report on legislation. So under this article, members of parliament can arrest or can stop a bill which infringes on the Bill of Rights. So you can submit a bill to parliament, which can also be gazetted and become law. But if that bill is infringing on the Bill of Rights, then it will be arrested or it will be stopped by members of parliament. They have that legal power. Article 28, we have enforcement of protective provisions. This article makes a provision for the enforcement of the rights provided in the Bill of Rights. It provides a remit to the domestic court, which is the High Court. In the High Court, the article makes a provision for appeal to the Supreme Court, provided the case is not frivolous or vexatious. We described these under the elements of the Zambian Bill of Rights. So this is where the High Court has got jurisdiction or powers to handle cases of those people infringing or violating other people's rights. That is Article 28. Articles 29 to 31 simply talk about special powers of the Republican president. such as declaration of the state of emergency, declaration of wars. A president can declare war. So these articles simply talk about special powers of the president. So these are the fundamental rights that are described in Part 3 of the Zambian Constitution. We have talked about them now. Someone may think, can this come in the exam? Can this come in the exam? So examiners will always want to bring new things, something that has never come in an exam before. They may outline 6 fundamental rights enshrined or described in the Zambian Bill of Rights. So just be prepared for whatever comes. Know these articles. You can be memorizing 3 a day, 4 a day, 5 a day until you finish them. Now let us look at the ways of enforcing the Bill of Rights. Ways of making sure that these rights are being enjoyed. These rights are being followed. The judiciary arm of the government is the many mechanism protection and enforcement of rights and freedoms outlined in the Bill of Rights. So this is contained in Article 28 of the Constitution. The judiciary, this is where we find courts, Zambia Police Service. This is the main arm of government, the major one that enforces the Zambian Bill of Rights. Secondly, a person who is aggrieved due to the violation of his or her rights can petition the High Court for redress. You can go to the High Court because, as you saw when we were describing the articles, the High Court is given jurisdiction or power to handle cases of violation of human rights. The judicial review under Order 53 of the Rules of the Supreme Court is another popularly used mechanism of enforcing the Bill of Rights. Habeas corpus. This is called habeas corpus or writ of certiorari. Writ of certiorari. This is where the relatives of a suspect, the person who is detained, have got the right to petition for their relative or that person who is known as the suspect to appear or to be brought before the court. If that person has stayed for long in the police custody, you can go there as relatives and petition for that person to be brought before a competent court and be charged. The latest mechanism introduced in Article 125 of the Constitution is the use of the Permanent Human Rights Commission, which acts as a watchdog to the courts in enforcing human rights. So we have the Human Rights Commission now, specifically meant to enforce human rights. So it watches the courts as they are enforcing human rights. It acts as a watchdog. That's the meaning. The Office of the Investigator General, who is also called the Ombudsman, equally enforces human rights claims. Any person is free to write to the Investigator General to lodge a complaint about human rights violations. So if you see that people's rights are being violated, you can write to the Investigator General. The media, civil society, Parliament, Law Association of Zambia, and the trade unions are also involved in monitoring human rights violations. So these are the ways of enforcing the Zambian Bill of Rights. Now, lastly, we look at the institutions that promote human rights in Zambia. 1, the Judiciary, Anti-Corruption Commission, Zambia Police, Catholic Commission for Justice, Development and Peace, Justice for Widows and Orphans Project, the Law Association of Zambia, and the Human Rights Commission. These are some of the institutions that promote human rights in Zambia. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you know these articles. See you in the next video.